Well, good morning and good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan. We're going to take a break from what we usually do when we talk about electric cars or the lithium industry or the petrochemical industry, and we're going to interview someone who is so exciting that she stands on her own two legs without a product and without a crutch because she is so successful. So let me welcome Liz Elting to our show. Liz, welcome.
Thank you so much, Elliot. Great to be here.
Thank you. If you're okay with this, and I know people are listening, I'd like to break this down into three segments. Okay. One is your corporate success. Second one would be your philanthropic success. And then thirdly is you. You've got a book, we'll get to mention it, and so forth. But what makes you successful? We'll finish up with that because I think that's the most exciting part is the people side of it. So this way we can keep everybody listening because ho hum, you're just a successful billionaire. What's the big deal? But so let's get started. Liz has got a great background. Just everybody, real fast. She's got a great background, a master's degree from NYU. Don't hold that New York up against her. At least it's not Columbia today. It's NYU,
Right.
and she's obviously very very smart lady. She started a business called TransPerfect in 1992. I'm going to ask her about that in a moment. Ultimately sold it when it did over $1 billion in sales and moved on with her life. So we could talk about those phases under the corporate success. And now she's got a terrific charity philanthropy program going for betterment of women in marginalized communities. So we're going to give Liz a lot of time to tell her what she does. And if you're listening, so many great ways to reach me at prosperityfinancialgroup.com. That's probably the easiest way. And give me a call. We could talk about this stuff too. So Liz, let's get started. Can we do that?
That would be wonderful. Thanks so much, Elliot.
You're very welcome. So I want to talk to you about, again, phase one is corporate success. I mean, why don't you tell us, there are really three major phases in corporate success when it's your company. And I'd love to hear how you attacked all three. The first one being the idea, the startup, the way it went from a piece of paper and a coffee clutch to it became a business. And then phase two, you've turned your business into something successful. It's got profits, it's got sales, it's got people working for you. And then phase three is, okay, I need to now divest myself of my business, hand it to my children, sell it to strangers, close it down, whatever that is. I would like to know how this whole thing got started, this amazing brainchild that you've created that turned out to be incredibly successful, because so many people in our audience are entrepreneurs. And they think that, okay, I could be the next Mark Zuckerberg, start my program, and 4 years later, I'll sell it for $1 billion or go public. And we both know as entrepreneurs, that's not how this works.
That's right. That's not how this works.
Let's talk about this and let's give the floor to you for a moment for how you went from infancy on TransPerfect to a viable, exciting business. And what were the phases, the little mini phases that happened in there from cash flow to people to HR and some of the challenges you experienced as well?
Sure. So what happened was I was very fortunate because as a child, I was born in New York. I was able to move to Portugal and then to Toronto. And during that time, I was able to first study Portuguese and French when I was in Portugal. And then after moving to Toronto, I continued with French. And then I added Spanish and Latin to my languages that I'd studied. So by the time I had graduated from high school, I had the opportunity to study 4 languages, which was wonderful. And I learned during that time, that was my passion. That was my favorite thing. So I then went to college and ended up majoring in languages, not knowing what on earth I would do with it. I remember people would say to me, oh, so you'll be a teacher because you're a language major. So this was in the 1980s. And I thought, well, no, I don't want to be a teacher. I love business. And so what happened is I did my junior year of college in Spain, and then after college worked in Venezuela. And then after leaving Venezuela, I came to New York City, where I happened to be visiting my sister and found a translation company where I could potentially work. So I ended up calling them up. This is another translation company, not mine. And I ended up getting a job there. And I thought, wow, this is so perfect. A company that does translations, a business that I can use my language knowledge in. So I remember it so well. I remember walking in and it was a very impressive looking company with the computer on every desk. And this was back in 1987 when there weren't computers on every desk. It was a whole other time. But I got the opportunity to work in the industry. absolutely loved, loved, loved the industry. First, I worked in production there. Then I was able to move into sales and learned all about it. And then after 3 years, I thought, okay, it's time to leave and go get my MBA. And the reason I did that was because as much as I had loved my time at the other translation company, I wasn't sure where I would go, how I would be able to ascend there. And I also thought they could be doing it better. I saw a gap between what clients needed and what was available in the industry as far as quality and service and turnaround time. So that was a very important moment. Ended up going back to school, getting my MBA from NYU, as we said. And then shortly after graduating, I took another job, which I don't need to get into because it was such a brief period of my life. It was literally 6 weeks, and it was in finance in the proprietary trading division of a French bank. And I did it because I thought I should be in finance. That was the practical thing to do. But I learned after only 4 weeks that I had made a huge mistake. It wasn't for me. I liked and I loved, in fact, the language industry, had an idea on how it could be done better. And I did not love finance. It was very dry, lots of number crunching, not my cup of tea. So after only 4 weeks, I gave notice, quit after 6 weeks, and started TransPerfect out of that NYU dorm room. And I know you said, talk about how we grew it, and I can certainly do that. But should I keep going and move on with how that company started with an idea out of an NYU dorm room?
Well, that's how most companies start, Liz. It's amazing. We had a company, or you do it on a napkin, and all these stories about that. But how did you go in the phases of building your business? How did you go from you got a startup, you've got an idea, obviously, that you could build a better mousetrap here with languages, but it's not something. I mean, it went from you to a much bigger you. If it only was you, then it would be as big as your two arms.
That's right. That's right. And at the time, it was very interesting because this was at a time where there were actually thousands of other translation companies out there. We were not the first people to do it. But those companies were tiny companies run by translators, typically between 2 and 5 people at these companies. 10,000 companies, 10,000 competitors, I learned when I did the research. But I thought, if we're going to do this, we are going to do it differently and better and build the world's largest. So how did we do it? We did not focus on getting funding like so many entrepreneurs do now. And I say funding is vanity, profitable revenue is sanity. So every moment put into selling, bringing in clients, and then making sure they were profitable so we could start hiring people and get out of that dorm room into an office. So from day one, no written business plan. It was more like on the back of a napkin and in my head. And because I had had 3 years experience in the industry, I knew a good amount about it. And then I called some people that I had also worked with, some translators, and asked them what they thought of the idea. And everybody said the industry was growing. It was a good time to do it. But as I said, focused on sales, sales, sales.
You know, Liz, you know that people at NYU, when they listen to this, are going to cringe that you did this without a business plan, because MBA schools live for business plans and structure, and you did something without structure. So I want you to know that at some point you're going to have to stop by the Stern School of Management and give some apology to somebody for this.
You know, I'm very involved in Stern now. Fortunately, I adore Stern. I love Stern. I'm on the board of the NYU Business School board. So very involved in Stern, and they know how much I love them. And I loved my education because I did learn a lot and started that company out of the NYU Business School dorm room. But I felt like we could put a lot of time into writing that business plan, but it was already there. It was in my head. And I was most concerned about bringing in business as quickly as possible because we started without funding, as I said, and without cash in the bank, virtually none. I had my life savings, which was a couple $1,000s. And then my ex-business partner had $90,000 in business school debt. So we didn't have time to waste writing that business plan. If I was going to quit that job that I did for 6 weeks, I had to get right to selling. So the way we did that is I made 300 phone calls every day to figure out who at a company would have a need for our service. And then once I figured out who the person was, I sent out a letter to that person with information on our company, 300 letters a day. Now, I would recommend a person do it by email or by LinkedIn messages or whatever it was. But the concept was have goals, of what you need to do each day to generate those sales, and then stick to your goals. Have discipline. Don't miss your goals on the actions that you need to take to generate the sales. And that's precisely what we did. And we did it for weeks, for months, for years. And that's how we built the company into the world's largest. And of course, there's a lot more to it. The world's largest company in our industry, that is. I can elaborate.
Yeah, I guess. So let me talk about discipline and resilience, because you brought up some good words, and realizing that entrepreneurs are listening to this. My dad used to talk to me all the time. I have this little voice, I call them my schizophrenic voices from my parents in there, that says, nothing makes up for hard work. And you show that 300 a day, emails, it doesn't really matter. You just can't make up for hard work. And then my mother's little schizophrenic voice, a little 5-foot tall lady who was an Auschwitz survivor, had put this message in my voice saying, you could do better today than you did yesterday, and you could do better tomorrow than you did today. Which means that every day when you come to work, and I try to teach this to entrepreneurs, you come to work knowing that you're coming to work. Put your ego aside, you're coming to work, and you're coming to build.
That's right. No, I love that. That's a very interesting way to put it and look at it, because I think you're absolutely right. I mean, first of all, I was a big lover of quotes, and my dad was too, and we used to discuss quotes together. And one of ours was, like yours, that about hard work. The harder you work, the luckier you get. And same concept, right? It's all about the hard work. And that's not what people want to hear. They want some silver bullet. But no, we know it's about the way I like to say it sometimes is show up when others won't and do what others don't. Work harder than everyone else. Be intense about it. Be disciplined. And I think Warren Buffett has a great quote that the difference between people who, do average in life and people who, are mega successful, incredibly successful, is simply discipline. So I am such a believer in that hard work and the power of hard work.
And so, Liz, challenges and resilience, sometimes getting your nose bloodied. I know you experienced that also.
Oh, all the time. But there are times when it was so difficult, so grueling. I mean, to get that first project from a client, that first phone call when a client said, okay, I have a translation project for you. It took thousands of phone calls and thousands of letters to get one. And so and then to get the second after the first from a different client was thousands more letters and phone calls. So it's those days are grueling and depressing and difficult. But I also, and then there was a lot of other kind of adversity later that we can talk about. But one of the things I like to say is work today like no one else will, so you can live and give tomorrow like no one else can. And that's what I kept reminding myself when the days were tough, that it would pay off. And then another thing I talk about is when we got that first project from the client. And I remember that those first two clients well, because both of them somehow showed up at the dorm room. The first one said, okay, I'm ready for my project. And I said, great, I will messenger it over. And they said, no, I'll be in your neighborhood and I'd love to check out the operation. Well, the operation was an NYU Business School dorm room. So I needed to run downstairs and intercept them before they got past the doorman. And then the second one, I couldn't even do that. The second project that came in, and this was thousands of letters later, they literally showed up and knocked it on the apartment door, the suite to you. It was apartment to you, but called it suite to you on the letterhead. But what I was going to say is there were times that were very tough and very frustrating, and you need the resilience. You can't let it get you down. You just have to, push through it.
There's funny, there was a commercial, and I know you're very involved with women, but and we'll get to that shortly. But Virginia Slims had these commercials going on in the 70s. If you remember that, for cigarettes, and it was "Baby, you can have it all" was their phrase. And the reality is that every business owner like you has learned on any given day, you don't have it all. You cannot be a great business owner. You cannot be a great spouse. You can't be a great mom. You just can't do all these, or a great daughter. You just can't do all these things well every day. So how did you, as you were growing this amazing business, figure out that every day I'm out of balance and how do I get back into balance?
That's right. And I could not have been successful if I had balance in my life every day or even every week, right? It's more about focus. It's about being all in focus pocus. Another one of my sayings, if you focus, it's like magic, but you really have to focus. And I had people from business school who would say, oh, okay, after work, we're going down to South Street Seaport, we're going out for drinks, or we're going to the Hamptons for the weekend. We have a share. And I thought, I can't do these things. First of all, I don't have the money. And secondly, I don't have the time. I'm building a company. But so I think you throw yourself all into whatever you're doing. And I think you have to put aside some of, the socializing, some of the hobbies. But I think what you need to do is you make your business your obsession. You act a little addicted. You be a little addicted to it. And then you find pleasure in it because you know what you're shooting for. It's about putting down on paper what your goal is. Your goal is as far as, the long-term goal for sure. And our goal was to create the world's largest language solutions company, but then also the annual goals and the quarterly goals and the monthly goals and the daily goals to get there and then sticking to them. But I think, it's not doing what everyone else will do. It's getting pleasure from accomplishing your goals. And one other thing about writing your goals, which is really important. Harvard Business School did a study and they found that people who wrote out their goals 10 years after they had graduated were making on average 10 times more money than those who hadn't written down those goals. And so that writing down the goals and making sure you do what it takes to stick to them is very important. And there's pleasure in that. And then also, as you hire, as you can afford to hire based on bringing in the business, you bring in like-minded people that you enjoy building the dream with. And that makes it so you're not all alone and you're not thinking, why am I doing this every moment?
You may transition. The second phase of that big transition, as I call it, is that you hire people with strong egos, strong ideas, strong talent, but want to be part of a team.
Yes. And you're right. They are those things because those are the people you want. And, people who act like owners and think like owners. And then what you do, what I recommend doing is you compensate them like owners, whereby if they're successful, they make a lot more money than they would elsewhere. And if they're not successful, they make less. And ultimately, they're not going to survive at your company. So you compensate them that way. And then you incentivize them to innovate and, make it so that in order to get a promotion, they need to come up with a new idea. And then, basically make it so they are acting and thinking like an owner. And we did that in all kinds of ways. And owning it was one of our core values. And, just like not having a written business plan, the core values we didn't write down until years later, but they were understood. So owning it is a critical one. And, I have a lot to say about that whole concept.
You're listening to Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan. As you can see, this is another exciting episode. Come check us out, prosperityfinancialgroup.com. You'll see 65 or plus other episodes. It's Elliot, ELLIOT, at prosperityfinancialgroup.com. And my direct cell is 510-206-1103. I look forward to meeting with you. So is TransPerfect still around today as is? And you're still at the helm of it?
Nope. I did this for 26 years. And then after 26 years, which sounds like an eternity when I say it, I sold. And it's still around. And that was actually back in 2018. So I did it from 1992 to 2018.
That's fabulous. So what made you sell? That's phase 3 now of entrepreneurial life. Phase 1 is I got my napkin idea like you did, or college idea or dorm idea. Phase 2 is I've grown this into a really successful entity. I've got people, I've got skills, all the things that you've done. Phase 3 is what's my exit strategy? How did you get to that point?
Well, a lot of excitement and drama along the way and, big goals to build the world's largest. And it was a really interesting 26 years. But after about 20 years, my partner and I had a 50-50 business partner. We were on different pages, different goals, aspirations, and different values. We had really just gone kind of like in different directions. And I thought, okay, I don't see how I can run this company with him anymore. And so either I need to buy him out or sell, or someone needs to sell to him, or someone needs to buy us both out. And I had a lot of drama there was a lot of drama in order to make that happen. Quite frankly, I had to litigate and spend $50 million of my own money in legal fees and a lot of drama, about 20 different lawsuits going on. But to keep it simple, ultimately I did sell at the end of 26 years. And now I get to do what I'm doing now. And, there's a lot more to it. But that was, in retrospect, it was time. I mean, my partner and I were not getting along, not agreeing. And I thought, okay, this is a very hard thing to do. If I'm going to sell, I'm giving up my baby, that I conceived. And, it was my third child and all of that. But now that I've not been doing it for 6 years, it's wonderful to be doing what I'm doing now. And that was a wonderful experience and journey. And now this current state that I'm in is.
So let's move forward if we could, Liz. That's I can't tell you how exciting that is as a fellow entrepreneur to be discussing this with an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And the road. So you've left there. You now have created a foundation with your name on it. You have the Halo Fund or Halo Fund. You've done things now to change the lives of women and communities. Tell us about your philanthropic roadmap.
Sure. So what I found kind of related to what we were talking about before is when I was busy building and running the business, that was all encompassing. That took a lot of time. And then when I wasn't doing that, I needed and wanted to focus on my family. So I didn't have time to do philanthropy. I mean, sure, I was involved in a few causes and we wrote some checks, but I realized during my time that there were a lot of causes to work on. And I also realized how fortunate I was. I had a great upbringing with wonderful parents who emphasized the value of hard work and education. And I was taught to work from a very young age. I started working when I was 10, and I needed to make my own money. My parents said, yeah, you are financially responsible for yourself, and that needed to happen very early on. So the work ethic and then the education, I had it, but a lot of people didn't have that upbringing. So I wanted to help those people. So that was one piece of it. And then the other piece of it is women. Women were not always treated the way they should be. I had experienced sexism, and then I saw a number of our employees had, and I wanted to address that issue as well. So my foundation focuses on helping support and empower women and people from marginalized and diverse communities, basically in order to make the workplace and the world a fair and equal place for all. That is what I'm trying to do with the foundation. And we work on a bunch of different causes and, focus on women and diverse communities. And it's just wonderful.
And if somebody wanted to get in touch with your foundation, how would they do that?
So we have a website. It's the ElizabethEltingFoundation.org. So that's the website. To get in touch with me, I have my own website, LizElting.com. But so that's how, though. And it's very rewarding and very interesting, and basically just trying to make the world a better place and establish equality for all.
Okay, that's great. So let's move to you. A little bit of there's a lot about you. You're an interesting person. Let you take a deep breath for a moment and tell us about what you've learned now, these learning lessons, your personal growth world. You've got a book over your left shoulder. I want you to tell us a little bit about that one. I've got a book over my left shoulder, so I know what it is to write a book called Driven by Elliot Callan, all about entrepreneurship and resilience. We kind of share that story. It's an Amazon bestseller.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you. It's exciting to do it, and I don't know how many copies are sold, but all the proceeds go to the foundation. So you and I are living on opposite coasts but parallel lives.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's so nice. And yes, and I'm doing the same thing with mine, because basically virtually all the money, yes, same thing with the money going to the proceeds going to the foundation. I mean, that's where the money is basically going. So why did I do it? I mean, should I talk about the book or me or both?
Okay. Both.
So as far as the book, and you can relate to this, Elliot, the reason I wrote the book is it's the book I wish I had when I was in my 20s, starting off my career and my company. I did read every book I could get my hands on back then, and I couldn't find a book quite like this. because I like reading stories about people. And so it's more like a business book memoir, a beach read business book is how I like to put it. I mean, I think there are a lot of lessons in there, but I try to make it a little more fun, entertaining, vulnerable, and authentic. And so that's why I wrote the book, because I could have used it. I made a lot of mistakes because in 26 years and very little experience leading and building and running a company, you're bound to make mistakes, and certainly I did. And I wanted to share what I learned based on what I did right and what I did wrong. So that's why I wrote the book. And I'm really enjoying this stage of the book because I wrote it in 2022. It came out in 2023. And now I'm still doing a book tour, and I get to talk to, brilliant, motivated people like you, Elliot. And I get to meet people in person, brilliant, motivated people like you in person, too, when I do events. And I'm just really enjoying the whole process. And I love speaking to the young entrepreneurs and the older entrepreneurs, the entrepreneurs that I'm meeting, and talking about their issues when I meet them. So
I can appreciate that. My publisher is in LA. We just did a book signing down there with an organization that specializes in entrepreneurs that want to create products to save the planet. And it's a great cause. It's not necessarily the cause that I promote, but it's a great cause. And I went down there and signed 35 or so books. It was a lot of fun. It's the second or third book signing we've done down in LA. There are different people there. You really meet interesting cross section, as you know. You meet some people that you would love to have coffee with, and you meet some people that saying, "Wow, they're a little bit odd. I'm not sure I want to do this."
Yes, that's true. That's true.
And so it's a lot of fun. And I don't know how. I'd love to know how long it took you to write the book. For me, I came in basically every Saturday and Sunday for a year on either one of those 2 days. My deal I made with my wife is that I would come in the office and write for 3 hours every weekend, or 6 hours if it was 2 days, and then I'd go home and spend the rest of the time with her. So I wasn't pulling away, detracting it. So it took a year for me to write it, not counting all the edits and rewritings, but a year to come up with the first draft. How about you?
Yeah, I mean, it was basically a year. And but I like the way you were disciplined with the way you did it. You said you wanted to make sure you still had family time at the same time. I did find it quite all-encompassing because, it's culling down what you want to say, all of your experience into one book, and which things you're going to say and which things you're not going to say, and how you're going to say them is, it's a bit of a, it's an interesting learning experience, but it took about a year. But then the other thing I learned is when you publish that book, you are the chief sales officer, chief marketing officer, chief financial officer. It's like launching a company all over again. And it's really interesting because that's what I really focused on in 2023 after writing the book, for a year in 2022.
It's a lot of fun. So now, as we finish up here, I want to go back to the original term that I brought up was the word balance, because you can't have it all, and so on any given day, we're all out of balance. Something's number one and something's number 3 or 4. It's life. I'm married, and I have, I'm on my second marriage, so I have 2 stepchildren with grandchildren. I have a daughter with multiple children, and I have a son in the East Coast with a great job. They're all very different. They all demand a little bit of time, and they all deserve time. And then, of course, I don't want to be on marriage number 3. So I want to give my wife enough time, because I tease her that I'm just the guy between 1 and 3, and I don't want to really be that. But we've been together 20 years now, but it's still that she deserves all that time. And we take a lot of travel vacations like you. I lived in Geneva, Switzerland for some time. And so I've got very Eurocentric. We'll be in Germany, Austria, and Greece very shortly. And I'm practicing my German right now, so I can communicate when I'm in Austria, because Germany, they'll speak English, but Austria, if you don't try in German, they won't even talk to you. It's a little bit like Paris. You got to put some effort in.
And then they'll talk to you.
Yeah. And so I know what that is, but it's the balance part of life. So how are you handling this?
Well, I guess I feel very fortunate. And I think that's one of the reasons after 26 very intense years, I do have more balance in my life. I think what happened is when as an entrepreneur, because this might be more interesting to people than the balance I find now, because it's a lot easier now that I'm not running that company. But when I was the first, 8 years, really before I had my first child, because I have two sons, it was intense and it was pretty much working crazy hours, 100 hours a week, whatever it took. Then I had my first son and I realized, okay, I've got to have some family time. And then I had my second son. So then it became much more about compartmentalization, right? Like kind of the way you were describing, you wrote your book. And it was the concept of, okay, I'm going to get to work at 8:30 every day, since that was our start time, or by 8:30, work super intensely during the day, make it all about goals with deadlines and results. And then at the end of the day, whenever it was 6 p.m. or whatever, leave, exit, go home and be all in on the family, right? And stay off the phone and the email and the texting and all of that. And same with weekends, really stay away from it. And, obviously there are times when you break the rules a little bit, but you need to be all in when you're at work and then leave and be all in with the family and make sure you allot enough time to the non-work activities. And I think the way you do that is, as I say, not making it about hours you spend in the office and small talk in the office, but about intensity and results. And I think that worked well, as an entrepreneur. Now I actually have been focusing pretty intensely on this book and my philanthropy because I'm on a number of boards. But I do want to make sure, and I am going to make sure in the near future, and certainly this summer, I'm going to spend a little time making sure I get proper family friend time in, and then travel and reading, because those are three of the things I absolutely adore. So
That's right. I use the term to be present.
Be present, be all in wherever you are.
I'm hoping that my children one day will look back at this and say, Dad, I know you worked your butt off to make things successful, and paved the way. We went to private school and private colleges and all these wonderful things. But when you were with us, you were really with us. Now, I can't say that for sure because my cell phone went off at soccer games and ice hockey games and football games. And it did. And sometimes we were in a texting world on a Saturday trying to sew a deal. And I'm sure you had the same thing. But for the most part, I want them to look back and tell their children that Grandma and Grandpa were present in our lives. And my lesson is I will be present in yours.
No, you're absolutely right. And that's why we have to put away our phones. And for me, it was the iPad. I had my iPad around too much. And there were times when I had to. And I will say, at the end of my time at my company, it was ridiculous, 5,000 emails a day. I mean, it was outrageous. We were becoming such an email company. But you're right. You have to be completely present wherever you are. And when you're with your family or a friend, not pick up your devices, be all in, be focused. And I think that's a wonderful lesson that you just said. And, I couldn't agree more. And I think I found it when we had employees, I needed to make sure I was doing that too, because if they saw me on email 24/7, they wouldn't want to ascend in the company. They wouldn't want their boss's job. They wouldn't want my job. They think that's what they had to do to succeed at our company. So I think it's very important for the employees to see that too. But I couldn't agree more with you. Be present.
So tell me the name of the book again and where do people buy it?
Sure. Dream Big and Win, Translating Passion into Purpose and Creating a $1 Billion Business, and on Amazon. And also, in many in-person retailers and online retailers, but Amazon is definitely the easiest.
Amazon is great. Get both of our books. You'll have a good time, but make sure you get Liz's book here. It sounds fabulous.
And Elliot's too. Thank you.
Well, what we went over, just to recap with everybody, because I've been talking with Liz Elting, who just created an unbelievable company in the world of language and translations and just TransPerfect, just a terrific company. Sold it when it hit $1 billion plus in sales. Made the transition that entrepreneurs struggle to make, which is phase 3, and that is, what do I do now? I'm going to exit. I'm going to put this exit strategy together. She experienced litigation. She experienced trials and tribulations of a partner. I noticed I did the same thing, buying out my partner at some point and wondering if we needed to go back to court and so forth. But this is the life of the entrepreneur. It is not a straight line. It's not Mark Zuckerberg starting like you did in college, like he did, and in a matter of 4 years, you're a billionaire. You are a billionaire or a $1 billion company in so many and more successful than so many entrepreneurs, men or women. They're just more successful than many of them. And there are lots of reasons why, especially after this interview, it's obvious why you're more successful. But the key is you showed resiliency. You showed to get back up after you've been knocked down. You showed I'm here for the long run and I'm going to keep doing it. And when it's all over, I'm just going to become a better person than I was. And I would bet that you didn't write that book for money. You wrote it because you wanted to tell a story. And you don't live your life today for money. You live your life today for purpose. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, and you get to a point when fortunately you don't have to worry so much about the money and paying the bills. We only need so much, right? And then we can really focus on the purpose. And then, of course, also even early on, if you focus on the purpose, usually the money takes care of itself, right? But yes, couldn't agree more with everything you just said. I love that.
Okay, so we've been talking with Liz Elting. This has been Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan. It's a series that has come out that is just now. We're just interviewing successful people because we've got so many great lessons. More than 65 episodes exist on our website. Come check us out at prosperityfinancialgroup.com. Come listen to Liz. I think you're going to like what you hear, and stay tuned for more episodes to come. Thanks, everybody. Make sure to check out previous episodes of Meet the Expert with Elliot Callan. We're on every podcast platform available to you right now, and we are also in the top 2% of all financial podcasts globally. I'm amazed with that fact, but it's also very exciting. So check us out. I look forward to meeting with you. I look forward to Zooming with you, and I look forward to speaking with you. Have a great day.